Hello, everybody. This is Cody Bateman. Welcome to a brand new version of our relationship marketing podcast. Boy, we're sure excited for our guest that we have on tonight. We've had some amazing guests that have come on to this show over the last several weeks. A lot of top sales professionals have been on with us, giving us some golden nuggets and great things. And boy, today we've got a huge treat for you. We have celebrity in the house today. I mean, I'm super excited about having this guy as a guest. We've been trying to get with him for quite some time now, finally have the opportunity to do it. None other than Mr. Bob Burg. Most of you have heard of Bob Burg. He is the co-author of the Go Giver series of books. Bob, welcome to the show with us.
Hey, Cody, great to be with you. Always love speaking with you. It's been too long.
It's been a long time. I remember some of those early conversations we had years and years ago as the Go Giver was out there. And I remember we had some great conversation back in those days because we had similar philosophies. I mean, obviously Go Giver was huge for me to even see the title of your book was huge for me because we've been teaching the concept, what you send out is what comes back. BNI, we do a lot of stuff with BNI. They have the giver's gain philosophy.
Sure, Dr.
And
Meisner.
we have the philosophy, give for the sake of giving. Detach yourself from getting anything in return. We give to give, not to get. We teach seminars on it, have done since day one. So when we connected the first time and you had this whole Go Giver thing, it was like synergy galore. It was great. And my goodness, since then, you have been, what an influencer you have been throughout the world.
Thank you.
Not only with this book. In fact, I'm going to, if you don't mind, I think I need to do a little bit of bio introduction for those of you. I'm sure most people that are listening have heard of this guy, definitely have heard of the Go Giver series. But man, you gotta hear some of this stuff so you really understand who we're going to be listening to today. Bob Burg is a sought-after speaker at company leadership and sales conferences on the topics of the core of the Go Giver books. Former television personality, top-producing salesperson. Bob has shared the platform with some of today's top business leaders, broadcast personalities, coaches, athletes, political leaders, including a former U.S. president. In addition to co-authoring the best-selling Go Giver books with John David Mann, Bob has authored a number of popular books, including the critically acclaimed Endless Referrals, which I highly recommend that you read. Great book. Network Your Everyday Contacts into Sales and Adversaries into Allies. His total book sales are well over 1 million copies. American Management Association named Bob one of the 30 most influential leaders. He's one of Inc.'s 100 great leadership speakers. Richtopia named him one of the top 200 most influential authors in the world. We could go on and on and on. His bio is another 3 paragraphs, but I think you get the gist here. Latest work, real excited about this. His latest work is the Go Giver Influencer, and I have a feeling that we'll talk quite a bit today about that word influence. But Bob, like I said, what a pleasure it is to have you with us. Well, let's jump right in. First of all, I've got these books right here. This is, if you just walk through a airport or walk through Barnes and Noble or whatever, this is everywhere. I mean, you'll see this book. Those of you watching on YouTube, you'll see this book. I just put it up there so people could see it. Then his brand new one is the Go Giver Influencer. It's purple. It's got kind of the same branding on it. It's following his Go Giver brand, which is super cool. If you have not read Go Giver, my goodness, make sure that you read it or listen to it. Fantastic information. First of all, you and John David Mann, your writing style is very unique. You have a story format that you use. I kind of reference you similar to an Og Mandino. Og Mandino is my favorite author of all time because he wrote in a parable or a story format, and you kind of do the same thing. So tell us a little bit about what is the Go Giver and how did it all come about?
Yeah, in Og's book, The Greatest Salesman in the World, that was my first parable I ever read. That was one of those, when you started in sales, that was one of the books you read, right? Yeah, and it made a huge difference in my life. And eventually, before he passed, I got to open for him a couple of times at public events. And what a thrill that was for me, opening for one of my heroes. So that was terrific. And, with these books, Cody, John is the real storyteller. I mean, he's a great writer. I'm a how-to guy. I'm step 1, step 2, step 3. And all of my books before the Go-Giver series were how-to books. John, thankfully, agreed to co-author these with me. He's really the lead writer and storyteller. And so, the fact that the books have done so well and they read as they do, that's John. Yeah. So it's, really shout out, kudos to John David Mann for that. The premise of the Go-Giver is, again, just aligned with you, who you are and what you do. And it simply says that shifting your focus from getting to giving. And when we say giving in this context, we simply mean constantly and consistently providing value to others, and understanding that doing so is not only a nice way, a pleasant way of conducting business, it's the most financially profitable way as well.
Okay, so is that really true? Because there's a lot of naysayers out there that say, yeah, this new age philosophy of give, and there are. I mean, there's still a lot of people that think, yeah, I don't know, I need to go close a deal. So when you say it is the most financially rewarding, there's people listening right now say, all right, Bob, that's great. Show me some proof. Give me some proof of that.
Sure. Well, and it would make sense that they would ask that, because we've sort of been brought up where, the bad guy is the one who gets, and that, that's, hey, here's a news story that you'll never see the networks lead with. Corporate CEO treats people well. I mean, just it doesn't sell. I hear they workshop that one. It didn't
right.
draw. So no, it's much more exciting to hear about the Enrons and the Tycos and the all of those. But let's really look at it from not some woo-woo kind of thing. Oh, just, give and be. No, it's not that at all. Often when I speak at a conference, so one of the first things I'll say is, nobody's going to buy from you because you have a quota to meet.
Right.
And we all laugh because we know that's true. No one's buying from us for that reason. No one's going to buy from you because you need the money. And no one's going to buy from you because you're a nice person.
Right.
Who really means well. They're going to buy from you because they believe they'll be better off by doing so than by not doing so. And in a free market-based economy that we live in, and when I say free market, I simply mean no one is forced to buy from anyone else. In a free market-based economy, that's the only reason why anyone should buy from you. Because of this, Cody, it means that the entrepreneur, the business owner, the salesperson must focus on bringing value to another human being, or that person is not going to do business with them. And so it really, it's totally rational and logical. When you can move your focus off of yourself and place it onto the other person, looking to make their life better, looking to bring value to their life in a way they see as being of value, people feel good about you. People begin to know you. They like you. They trust you. They feel safe with you and comfortable with you. They want to do business with you. And so this is the person who consistently is going to get the business. When we think of selling, there's such a backwards notion with so many people about what selling is. Selling is trying to convince someone to buy something they don't want or need. That's not selling. That's called being a con artist. Okay.
Right.
No, the focus is on the con artist, not on the other person. No, selling by definition is simply discovering what the other person wants, needs, or desires, and helping them to get it.
Okay,
and
now
that the focus has to be on them.
No question. And we've had this actually come up before with some of our other guests, and I think it's important to talk about is that in the process of doing that, you assess your prospects' needs. You're there to serve them. And there are times, and this is hard for salespeople to get, there are times when you know in your mind that what you're offering is not what's best for them. Mm-hmm. And you may even know that what they need is something that you don't sell. It might even be a competitor of yours.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very hard because we teach, and I know you teach in those situations. If you're there to serve, you're going to tell them what you think is best for them to do, regardless if it's your product or not.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And, this in many ways has to do with character, right? And, we know that when someone has character, they stand for something. In other words, they act congruently with their values. And if your highest value in terms of being a salesperson is to provide value, to provide the highest service to your customer, to that person in front of you, you certainly do the best you can to do that. And part of that at times is you're not the right person. And, when you think about it, that's just the best thing you can do, even for selfish purposes. Because think about it, right? I mean, when you can tell someone that, and it doesn't come up often, but when it does, when you can tell someone, hey, this isn't, the best thing for you. This isn't your best option. Your best option would be, based on what I'm hearing from what you're looking for, would be this, or that. I can, refer you to someone and so forth. Think of the goodwill that has been engendered in this case.
Oh, no question.
This is a person who, if it works out, they can come back to buy from you in the future. Sure, they will, but they'll tell others about you, and it probably will end up working in your advantage. Plus, the person who you gave that visit to referred, they'll probably end up, doing that. But even if not, it doesn't matter. Because if you know that you're willing to do the right thing because it's the right thing to do, then that means when you do have someone, a prospective customer in front of you who you can serve, that belief, that feeling comes across, and you're a better salesperson.
Yeah, it's not just about you being in front of that particular person. It's not just about that person. It's about every single person that person knows.
Yeah.
So if you come across with integrity, and you come across with character, and you come across being trustworthy, they may not need your product, but I guarantee you they know someone who does, and they're going to refer people over to you. And these are all common sense things. You would think these are common sense things, but they continue to need to be taught. In fact, I'm going to ask you a question here. If you took 10 random salespeople, let's say we go to a car dealership. I don't know if that's the best example or not, but whatever. We go to a car dealership and we line up 10 salespeople that are at that car dealership. And we ask the question, why are you in sales? Why are you in sales? Now my question to that is what is the answer going to be? How many of those 10 people are going to say, well, I'm in sales to make money? And how many of those 10 people are going to say, I'm in sales to add value? Just randomly. If you just randomly did it, what do you think that would be like? Well, I just thought of that question. I
don't know what the percentage would be, but I'll tell you what. I'll tell you this, though. By and large, the ones who are the top producers are in business for the purpose of bringing value to the lives of their customer. Okay? The money is the result. This is why we say that money is simply an echo of value.
So I would venture to say that's the 80-20 rule. 20% of the salespeople make 80% of the money, and that's how it works. So the 20% are there to create value. They make 80% of the money. The 80% are there to make money, and they only make the 20%. And so it's just logic. It's just kind of how it works. And so I think it's really important, especially people who are in sales management and sales training. Such an important principle to continually bring home to people the importance of being of service to others. Go giver, go out and give, send out to give for the sake of giving, detach yourself from getting anything.
Well, I love that because, it's interesting that you say that, because there's a lot of people who will say, what Bob and John are saying is give without expectation. And I kind of want to, and I know it's semantics, but I'm not totally comfortable with that saying, and I'll tell you why. Because I want people to expect good things to happen. Now, I know what they mean is without expectation that it has to happen. And that's where detachment comes in. And that's what you're saying. Give without attachment to the result. In other words, do you prefer good things are going to happen? Sure. Do we expect that good things are going to happen? Absolutely. I want people to have positive expectation. But you give without attachment to the result. So I love that. That means that you know that if you're doing the best you can, if you know you are looking to provide immense value to everyone whose lives you touch, well, you know that the money is going to come. Not for some mystical, magical reason that has nothing to do with that. It just makes sense.
Yeah, no question about it. Well, let's talk. So that's the Go Giver. And boy, if you don't have a copy, you want to make sure you get one. I'm sure you're available on Amazon and all that kind of stuff, or at any bookstore. In fact, that's close to 1 million copies sold, right? About 850,000 copies of this have been sold. And like I said, you've sold well over 1 million books with some of your other books. Brand new one out, The Go Giver. I want to talk a little bit about this one. I haven't had a chance to read this yet. I just got this copy. I'm super excited for a weekend read, so I'm looking forward to that. Big word right here, influence. We hear that word a lot. We hear, now with social media, we got the people of influence. I mean, that's a huge word. So what does that word even mean?
Yeah, and I love that you asked that, because I think it's so important that we define our terms, right? We check our premises and make sure we're all coming from the same, because you can say a word like influence nowadays, and it's got so many different meanings depending upon who you ask. So I think influence basically can be defined two different ways. On a very basic level, we can define influence as simply the ability to move a person or persons to a desired action, usually, typically within the context of a specific goal. By definition, that's influence. That's its definition. But I don't believe in any way that that's the substance or the essence of influence. The essence of influence is pull. Pull as opposed to push, as in how far can you push a rope? And we know the answer is not very far, at least not very fast or very effectively, which is why great influencers don't push. You never hear people say, wow, that Tom or that Joanne, she is so influential. She has a lot of push.
Right.
Right. She sure is pushy. Or, wow, what a great leader. No, of course not. They'd say Joanne is very influential. She has a lot of pull.
That's right.
People. That's what influence is. It's an attraction. Great influencers, what we call genuine influencers, attract people, Cody, first to themselves and then to their ideas. And they do this, again, not through pushing their ideas on others, not through pushing their will on others, not through being push-y, but through its opposite, pull. Now, we say, okay, well, how do you do that? How does that pull happen? How does it manifest itself? Well, I think that any genuine influencer understands at a very heart level what I believe was the underlying premise of Dale Carnegie's classic How to Win Friends and Influence People. And this is where he wrote, and I think this really said it all. It's where he wrote, ultimately, people do things for their reasons, not our reasons. So the genuine influencer self-questions. They ask themselves questions to check their focus, right? And make sure it's in the right place on the other person. So, they'll ask themselves questions such as, how does what I'm asking this person to do, how does it align with their goals, with their wants, with their needs, with their desires? How does what I want this other person to do, how does it align with their values? Or you could say, what problems am I helping them to solve? What am I helping them to get or attain that they want, that they can't without my, guidance and so forth? And when asking ourselves these questions thoughtfully, intelligently, genuinely, authentically, not as a way to manipulate another human being into doing our will, but as a way of building everyone in the process, now we've come a lot closer to earning that person's commitment rather than trying to depend on some type of compliance.
You know, kind of the old school influence. You said that word manipulation, and some, you know, and a lot of times when people think of themselves as influencers, pushing, if you will, that word manipulation comes up. You know, it's a way to manipulate people to an area that you want them to go. But what you talked about is pulling on the rope. You know, you pull people towards what they want, not what you want.
Right.
I think that's real important. I remember
Well,
yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Cody. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, it kind of reminds me when I first started doing, I do these personal development seminars around the concept of acting on your promptings and reaching out in kindness to other people. And we've been doing those seminars for a lot of years. When I first started doing, way back in the day, in fact, the first 8-hour event that I did on my own. Do you remember your first full day seminar you ever did?
Oh boy.
I mean, like the first one I ever did, you know, I'd done 30-minute speeches and 20-minute speeches, and like I made the core mistake, you know, 30 minutes in, like I gave them it was like a 30-minute speech, and worn out. I'm like, oh my gosh, I got 7 more hours to go here. What am I going to do? You know? So one of those things. But in some of those early events, I used to do this thing where, in fact, maybe I'll bring this thing back. I don't know. I haven't taught this for a lot of years, but I used to bring this thing is me. I'd put up the letters I with a slash and me versus you / we. So a lot of people in sales in particular, their focus is I and me. A lot of people, when they are trying to become influencers, when they're trying to create an audience on social media, it's I and me. Look how great I am. It's all about me versus you / we. So in the sales process, or even in the becoming an influencer process, if you make it about the other person, it's about you and what can we do together is kind of that shift, I think, that you've been talking about throughout your books.
Yeah, that's such a great point. You know, it's funny. I often say, and probably one of the, the basic premises that I've always, hopefully shared throughout the years I've been doing this, and I think it's somewhere in every one of my books, is where I say that, the golden rule of business, of sales, of networking, of life, relationships, whatever, is that all things being equal, people will do business with and refer business to, and we could say, and allow themselves to be led or influenced by those people they know, like, and trust. Yep. And, there's simply no faster, more powerful, or more effective way of eliciting those feelings toward you in someone than by, again, genuinely and authentically moving from that I or me focus to that other focus, making your win all about the other person's win. And when you do that, and you do that consistently and constantly, and you get to develop a reputation as that person who does that, that's when people really just feel so good about you. That trust is really right there, and you develop that army of personal walking ambassadors. And one of my favorite authors and speakers, Stephen M.R. Covey, son of the famous Dr. Stephen Covey of 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Well, Stephen M.R.'s book, The Speed of Trust, is one of my all-time, I think I hold it up at every seminar I do, every program, because it's such a great book. And one of the things he says in there is that trust is the very root and source of your influence.
Wow.
And, you don't cultivate trust by, as you were saying, I and me. You cultivate trust through you and we. Yeah. So I just love, what you said.
Yeah, that's good stuff. That's good stuff. When I was growing up, my mother used to always say to me, parents are cool because parents plant seeds. My parents always planted seeds into my subconscious, which really helped me later in life. And she used to always say a couple of things. First, she'd say, Cody, you are a special boy. I'm just a little kid. I'm a little kid. She'd say that to me all the time. Cody, you are a special boy. And then she would say, I want you to remember, if you will remember this, you will always be happy. She says, you need to find out who you are and then give yourself away to other people. So what do you think about that advice from a mother? Find out who you are so that you can give yourself away to others.
Yeah. Well, I think you and I were both very blessed in the parent department to have, parents who encouraged us and, helped us really have a foundation of self-confidence and, the ability to grow. And I mean, I think what you said to you was just such great advice because, when we can really, kind of discover what we're here for, in our, even in our own minds. And then what's the best thing we can do, both for ourselves and others, is to give that away, is to, to share that, to make that a part of our life and hopefully make it a part of the lives of those people we touch. So, yeah, I just love that.
Good stuff. Okay, so listen, in this new book, Genuine Influence, there's 5 secrets. 5 secrets of genuine influence. There's some really cool stuff here. I don't know if we're going to be able to get through all 5, but I want to talk about a couple.
Sure.
The first one, I love the word emotion. Whenever I hear emotion, I love to study about emotions and what emotions are, those kind of things. So your first thing is mastering your emotions. And you have this thing called the seatbelt principle of emotions. So when I saw that in your summary, I'm like, okay, I need to know anything with the word emotions. I need to know. And you're always very clever in the way you write stuff. So the seatbelt principle of emotions, I got to know what that is.
Yeah. So let me kind of set that up because it all begins with mastering our emotions. It's only when we're in control of our own emotions that we're even in a position to take a potentially negative situation or person and turn it into a win for everyone involved. And yet, how often do we allow ourselves, based on what someone else has said or done, we allow it to push our emotional hot buttons, and we allow ourselves to be upset, victimized, frustrated, angry, right? And we say or do something that is totally counterproductive to what we're looking to accomplish. Now, we know this, yet we do it anyway. Why? Well, I think the answer is because we're human beings, and it's part of human nature. As human beings, we are emotional creatures. Now, we'd like to think we're logical, and to a certain extent, of course, we are, but we're basically emotion-driven. We make major decisions based on emotion. We back up those emotional decisions with logic. We rationalize, which basically just simply means we tell ourselves rational lies. And, this is part of being human. Now, we're certainly not suggesting that you deny your emotions. There's no need for that. Emotions are wonderful. They're a beautiful part of life. They bring us joy. They make life worth living. No, don't deny your emotions, but control them. Make sure you're the master of your emotions as opposed to your emotions being the master of you. So a great friend of John David Mann's and mine, her name is Danji Scumaci. Great leadership speaker. And what she said once, and this is where we took this from, the saying you were referring to, she said, by all means, take your emotions along for the ride, but make sure you are driving the car. And, we love that because, again, bring your emotions, absolutely, but make sure your logical mind is driving. Your emotions, bring them with you, but make sure they're in the passenger seat, safely, belted and seatbelt fastened, okay? Because if your emotions are driving the car, it's almost like you're at the mercy of a drunk driver, right? Our emotions bring wisdom with us. We should consult our emotions, but if we want to create the environment, Cody, where we're making the best decisions which give us the best chance of the outcome we desire, we need to be acting from a logical base.
It's interesting as you talk about emotions. I had a college professor, and I don't want to get too far into this debatable discussion here. I'm just going to bring this as a point as we talk about emotions. But this is 4 years of college. There's about 3 things that just stick in your mind that a professor may have taught or whatever. 3 things out of 4 years of education. One of mine came from a psychology professor who said, and it was his theory, and it's this debatable, I'm sure, whatever, but his theory is, he said, love, first of all, he talked about the power of love. Love is the ultimate ultimately the most powerful thing there is. And it's scripturally, those who, Christian people read the Bible or whatever, scripturally it talks about love is the only thing that will prevail. I mean, after everything fails, love will be the only thing standing. So he talked a lot about the importance of love. But then he went on and he said, love is not an emotion. Because most people think, well, love's an emotion. And he said, no, love is not an emotion. Love is a state of being. Emotions are the levels. They're the levels of what you feel something. Mm-hmm. So if you feel despiteful or hateful, there's a level of that hate. That's the emotion you feel. Love is a state of being. Now you can feel a higher level of love and those kind of things. And then he referred to a scripture in the Bible that basically says this. It says, bridle your passions so that ye may be filled with love. So when I listen to you talk about this, it's like you got to control your emotions so that you can allow the powerful things in your life to work. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it does.
Bridle your passions.
Well, it's really saying that when you're in control of your emotions, you can think from a constructive, proactive basis.
Right.
Because it's we're in control of those emotions, so they're there, and it's okay. Again, we don't want to deny them; they're there, but they're in there. They're in the place they're supposed to be. They're our servant, not our master, right? And so when that's the case, now we can act out of conscious choice rather than a type of reactive programming.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I love that.
Another one of these secrets, and we've talked about this, but I want to get some different input from you. Step into other person's shoes, stepping into other people's shoes. So just tell us a little bit about what you mean by that.
Well, it's a saying, Cody, that it's kind of a trite saying because we've all heard it before, right? So I'll step into the other person's shoes. Think, oh, it's easy, but is it? Because when you think about it, most of us have different size feet. So literally, we can't step into the other person's shoes a lot of times, but figuratively, more importantly here, we can't step into another person's mind because we all come from our own set of beliefs, our belief system, which is our, what is a belief? A belief is a subjective truth. It's the truth as we understand the truth to be, which means it might be the truth or it might not be. And far too often it's really not, because we all see the world from our own paradigm, from our own model, from our own, and this belief system we have, most of it, it was given to us, right? I mean, it's a combination of upbringing, environment, schooling, news media, right? And it was pretty much fixed early in our life. And so most of us, we grow up living from what I would call an unconscious operating system, thinking that we're choosing proactively and actively when usually we're pretty much operating within a matrix, if you will, of some predetermined choices.
Right.
What happens is we see the world a certain way according to our belief system. So does the other person.
That's right.
But as human beings, we tend to think that most people see the world the same way we do. I mean, that makes sense. How could it be anything different, right? It's all we know. Now, most conflict is the result of two people seeing the same basic thing from two different points of view without even realizing it. That's why it's so important to ask questions, to not assume we know what they're thinking, and to not assume they know what we're thinking, because we don't and they don't. We need to ask questions and then listen. But as one of the mentors in the story told their protege, listen not just with your ears. That's the surface listening that most people do. That's listening in order to speak. That's allowing them to get in their 2 cents so that we can get in our 10 cents, right?
Right.
No, listen instead with your eyes. Listen with your posture. Listen with the back of your neck. In other words, just put your entire being into listening to this person. Now, when you do this, 2 beautiful things happen. One is you actually do learn more about this person. You're stepping into their shoes. You're getting to know their thought process. What's meaningful to them? What do they value? What do they need from you? But the other thing is, when you do this, the other person feels heard.
Yeah.
They feel listened to. They feel understood. And that's such a basic need of human beings. And so they feel good about you. They begin to trust you. Right? And so it just, when we can really listen in order, as Stephen Covey said, right? Dr. Covey, listen in order to understand, right? Seek first to understand. Well, now we're, 9 steps ahead of the game in a 10-step game, and we're really creating the context for a very beneficial relationship.
Okay, so as I hear you say all this stuff, stepping into somebody else's shoes, and it all feels right. I'm going to break a fundamental rule of podcasting right now. I'm just going to warn everybody right now. When I heard you saying that, I couldn't help but think. So in other words, a Republican ought to step into a Democrat's shoes, and a Democrat ought to step into a Republican's shoes. Now, I know my listeners are already going, he just said something about politics. But in all seriousness, don't you think isn't that, I don't want to talk politics, but I do want to talk about an issue that's going on in our country right now. There is this separation because of a non-willingness to see things from somebody else's point of view.
Cody, it used to be political discourse. It used to be, I'm right, you're wrong. Now, that's still not the best, case scenario, but that's what it used to be. And it was, people got by with that. Right. Now it's, I'm right, you're evil.
Right.
Okay. If you don't agree with what I think is right in terms of this or that, not only are you wrong, okay, but you have evil intent.
Right.
Well, you just can't learn that way. You can't understand anything that way. What you said is a great point about stepping into the shoes of the other side. And let's look at a couple different things there, if we may. And this also goes into some of the other secrets, if you will, because they're really not secrets, of genuine influence in terms of setting or resetting a frame, communicating with tact and empathy. Yeah. Let's say, for example, that, and I know this never ever happens, but let's say there's a really malicious kind of political discussion going on Facebook. I know that would never, where people are insulting each other, right? But right. We'll just use that as an example, as though it could happen.
Yeah.
And so let's say somebody makes a statement, somebody posts a statement, and the other person, somebody comments and says, "People like you are absolutely horrible, evil person. You have no right to live. You don't care about people. You are an evil, blah, blah, blah." Right. Now, does the person who's been insulted, okay, do they ever respond to that by saying, "Thank you so much. Right. Wow. I so appreciate you pointing out the error of my ways. I never thought of it that way before."
I see the light. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
No, of course not. They're going to be only more. And it's the same if someone then comments back to the person with the insult. "Oh, people like you are just blah, blah, blah." And it goes back and forth. Nobody's understanding. People are just yelling. They're spewing hatred. Nothing's happening. No one's being influenced. So what if instead this happened? And again, say a person posts a rather controversial type of statement. Person responds by saying, "People like you are evil. You don't care about others. You have no right to live, blah, blah, blah." Okay. But now, what if another person decides to join the conversation and they say, "Mark," let's say the person's name was Mark, who made the real evil, horrible response. "Mark, I must say I'm very impressed with the passion that you have. Like you, I also want to live in a country where people are able to," and then you make the point of where you both probably agree. Because, Cody, here's something I found. Whether someone's far left, far right, medium left, medium right, whatever, conservative, liberal, libertarian, whatever, most people want a country in which people are happy, can pursue happiness, that they're healthy, that they're prosperous, that they're, now there's two totally different ways of going about it, that there's no
right.
of getting there. That's not the issue. But most have, other than the total outliers on both sides, most have the same basic goal. So when you can say, "Mark, I must say I appreciate the passion you have for this topic. You seem to genuinely care about others. Like you, I want to live in a country where people are able to, and then you make the point of it, and then you say, I think our biggest difference is in how we feel is the best way to get there.
Right.
So
right,
now what you've done is a couple things. One, you've reframed this from totally adversarial to one of two allies looking for the same result. You did it with kindness. You did it with tactfulness. Now, I've actually had people write back and say, oh, well, I apologize for being so this and that, but whatever. But a lot of people won't too. There's some people, their mind's so made up, and so they're just not gonna. But here's the thing that most people don't understand, or I think they understand, but we don't think about it. Whether an in-person group conversation or an online conversation, there are usually lots of people who are listening in who aren't really commenting.
Right.
But most people, Cody, are not so far one way or the other that they can't be influenced. They're usually either somewhere in the middle or a little bit to one side or a little bit to the other side. And they're watching. They're watching this conversation for a couple of things. First, they're looking for the facts, and so it's important to know what you're talking about. But even, I hate to say, more importantly, they're looking for who they can relate to. They're looking for who's making their point in a way that is genuine, that is respectful, that brings people into the conversation. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And these are the people. So, you know, when we do it this way, we actually can open people up to a different way of thinking.
Well, I can't help but think, you know, as somebody enters a conversation like that might turn controversial, a lot of it has to do with the person's state of mind. I mean, what are you feeding yourself on a daily basis? If you're watching the news every day and you're involved with the controversy on a daily basis, if you're getting on social media and you're looking at all of the things that so-and-so said versus what somebody else said, and that becomes like you said, that becomes your influence. That becomes
the echo chamber,
what you're nourishing yourself with. Now, when you enter that conversation, the nourishment that you've put in here is what you're portraying in your energy out in these conversations. And I think that's why it gets very controversial. Now, I take a look at you. Those of you watching this show on YouTube are able to see Bob, and right behind you are all these books. And you can't see mine because they're off over here. But behind me, I've got all these books, and I don't see the titles on there, but I guarantee you've got hundreds, if not thousands, of personal development, positivity, nourishment-oriented books that are sitting behind you, which is a reflection of what you nourish yourself with. And let's talk a little bit about that as we close up today. How important is nourishment, the proper kind of nourishment, so that you can give away the best version of yourself to somebody else?
Oh, you know, I think it's everything. I think it's everything, because we can choose what we put into our mind. Now, there's a lot of stuff we can't choose that goes in because we hear things, we see things, and so forth. Absolutely. But we have a choice of what we're going to study. And yes, most of my books are personal development books. I need them. Right? I need to keep feeding my mind. I'll also tell you, there's a lot of, there's history books. It's another favorite. Marketing, philosophy, a lot of political books. And I'm going to tell you, they're political from both sides of the aisle, because I want to know what the other's thinking. Right. And, you alluded to something earlier, and I just want to bring it up quickly if I can, because I think this is very important. I think it feeds into what we're talking about. Should you understand the way the other side thinks? I have been saying for a long time now that if you are a, let's say, conservative Republican, you should be watching MSNBC and CNN, okay, sometimes. If you're a progressive Democrat, you should be watching Fox News. And when I say watching them, I don't mean watching the clips on the station you usually watch, where they take clips from the other one, the enemy, right, and they show it from a skewed perspective. No, I mean watch the other point of view. Not to agree with it. Right. Not to agree with it, but to understand
it. Yeah, absolutely.
Understand it. Because when you understand it, now you're in a position. First, you see them as human, and you understand more about what's driving them and what's motivating them. And you're basically in a position to be more influential because you're understanding them, even if they're not understanding you. And that's why you've got to read from different perspectives and then make your own mind up. Don't just believe who you want to believe because you'd like it. You know, that's that confirmation bias that we all hear about all the time. Confirmation bias, when you come across some information and if it confirms your already held beliefs or biases, you accept it. But if it doesn't, you ignore it. You can't learn that way.
Yeah, no question about it. That's great advice, by the way. It's super, super good advice. Not easy to follow, but super good advice. It is really important to gain a balance in your own mind and make up your own mind. You know, make up your own mind. I think that's a real important thing. Well, I'll tell you what, we could talk for hours. I think it's just been an honor to have you on with us.
Likewise.
And love to listen to you. So everybody, Go Giver Influencer, go to Amazon, or what's your website?
They could either go to Burg.com or thegogiver.com without the hyphen, thegogiver.com, and everything's there too.
Excellent. And also, you got a big conference coming up that you're speaking at, the Outbound Conference in Atlanta, Georgia. I believe that's on, when is that? That is
it's April
23rd through the 26th. I'm actually going to be, I think I'm going to be in attendance there. So I'll be able to meet and see you there.
Great. I can't wait.
Great. We have a big conference coming up in Salt Lake City, August 8th and 9th is the Relationship Marketing Grand Summit. Now, I know I've been wanting to get with you, and I'm sure it's probably too late because your schedule is crazy. But man, I'd love to have you speak at our Relationship Marketing Summit. I think you'd be phenomenal. So, you know, that's my way of booking speakers. I get in a public format where 1,000 people are listening. And I'm saying, hey, Bob, come speak at my event. It's August 8th and 9th. I'm sure you've got 3 bookings that day, but anyway, let's
take a look at schedules and see if they match up. I'd be honored to. Absolutely.
Yeah, we would. If schedules were permit, we'd love to have you there, and love seeing you over at the Outbound event coming up in April. So there you have it, my friends. Appreciate all of you tuning in with us today. Bob, appreciate the time you have spent. Keep doing what you're doing, brother. Really appreciate the influence that you have on me personally and on so many people throughout the world. So take care, everybody. Appreciate you. We'll see you in another episode here of our Relationship Marketing Podcast. And we'll talk to you all later. Take care now.
If you enjoyed this episode of Relationship Marketing with Cody B, be sure to subscribe to the show. Leave a review so that together we can get this message out to the world.